Welcome back, everybody. Big tech companies are getting caught up in the sell-off. Names like Adobe, Microsoft, Apple, Intel, Oracle, and Cisco are all in correction territory after the declines we've seen the last couple of days. And Adobe, which had a strong run to start the year, is now down about 8% just over the last week. Joining us right now to talk about this and much more is the Adobe CEO, Shantanu Narayen. And it's great to see you, Shantanu. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me, Becky.
Obviously, markets overall are getting roiled. Just watching the Dow down 1,900 points in 2 days. What do you think, as a CEO who's actually seeing the sales coming in, seeing what's happening, what's your take on the economy right now?
Well, first and foremost, I think the conversation is all about the coronavirus. And I think the human element of that is certainly tragic, and we're all monitoring that. But I think in terms of the general economy and the strength that we're seeing, we're in three businesses. On the creative side, the notion of creativity and design has never been more important, whether you're a K through 12 student or the largest enterprise in the world. Everything to do with automating document processes is strong, as well as every company that wants to engage digitally with customers. So I think the fundamental economic drivers of using technology, whether it's artificial intelligence, whether it's machine learning, whether it's what's happening with 5G, I think the strength will continue.
You do have a lot of sales in Asia, though. Have you seen things shut down? Because from where we're sitting, it looks like business is kind of ground to a standstill in China.
Well, where we are in our fiscal calendar, we end the quarter, so we're not commenting on that specifically. But actually, our sales in China, as a result of people using our products, but continued piracy, they're not as material as maybe some of the other companies that have larger presence.
Because a lot of people weren't paying for it to begin with. A lot of companies weren't paying to begin with. It's not going to have as big of an impact.
In particular, China is not a material part of our business.
All right. So can you give us some insight? I realize you're in a quiet period, but just trying to see through, again, the stock market's kind of like dropping everything right now. Investors are dropping everything as they worry about what this will mean for the global economy. Does that make sense from somebody who can see the numbers on a daily basis?
I think in terms of the uncertainty that this causes, you can clearly see why that might raise some concerns. But depending on how long this goes, I think it's the duration and tenure. I think it doesn't change fundamentally how technology is going to continue to transform every industry. So I think the long-term secular trends are going to continue to be positive. I think it's the uncertainty that everybody's focused on right now.
Here was a big call that caught my attention. Yesterday, UBS, Jay Fleshauer, actually raised its price target on Adobe to $430 from $360. This was yesterday, as the markets were in this sort of free fall. There have been questions from other analysts. They want to hear more about what you're doing in terms of business to business versus the consumer at this point. How's that going?
Well, I think on the consumer side, as I mentioned, this notion of creativity for all, I think it's crazy in this day and age that people still look at text rather than graphics and video and animation and interactivity as the way you want to tell your story. So I think using digital as storytelling is just...
Photoshop and beyond this?
Photoshop products like Spark that we're doing, for every single K through 12 student. I think that secular trend continues. I think on the enterprise side, what we have done, we were the first company that pioneered what we call digital marketing, which is how do you engage with your customers digitally. And I think the demand for that as well, in other words, how do you engage with your customers directly, all the streaming services that we're seeing, everything with respect to direct to consumer, I think that secular trend is also just going to continue in perpetuity.
How is the move to the cloud going? That's what a lot of analysts have wondered as well.
Well, we were the pioneer. We were absolutely the pioneer in terms of moving from box software. And I think when we first did that many years ago, people were wondering what Adobe was up to. And I think whether it's the speed at which we can now innovate, the recurring revenue stream, the ability to price differentially in different countries, and the ability to continue to attract new customers, it's paid off in spades.
How recession-proof are you for both businesses and consumers? How core of a product is it?
Well, I think when you have 90% recurring revenue, we're probably more, saved from what might happen. But nobody wants to test, right, what happens in the recession. I think we all want, and the general U.S. economy in particular continues to be strong. So the one thing I hope we don't do is all talk ourselves into, trying to react to a slowdown before a slowdown happens.
What's the biggest headwind that you're facing right now? Is it coronavirus or is it something else?
I think the company has been growing at 20%. I think we're actually continuing to do really well. And so, we focus a lot more on are we innovating on behalf of our customers rather than any external issues right now.
the acquisitions of Marketo and Magneto for those business-to-business sort of consumers. How's that going, and how's, again, the move to try and get more to a B2B situation?
I think the distinction, Becky, between what was a B2C company, which was companies engaging directly with customers, and a B2B company, which may be engaged through a distribution channel, that distinction is completely blurring. And so it doesn't matter what kind of a company you are, you want to engage directly with customers, the Unilevers of the world, the Procter & Gambles of the world. And so I think both Magento and Marketo, in terms of both providing us with that last mile on commerce and the ability for B2B companies to engage directly with customers, both of them are really key parts of our acquisition strategy and rounding out our portfolio.